It's the following Monday that Ayanokoji thinks back on the unanimous vote special exam. You see, he never intended for the exam to turn out that way, and he actually believes Horikita made a bad decision. He finds her in the lobby waiting for Kushida, who didn't leave her dorm all weekend. Ayanokoji explains that Hasabe won't talk to him either, prompting Horikita to apologize for damaging his friend group. He enters into the classroom to find a dark atmosphere lingering in the air. Chubashiro reveals that Kushida, Michan, and Hasabe are all going to be absent, and that it won't affect the class points if it's only a few days. She then begins explaining the upcoming sports festival. This year, it'll be geared toward individual ability, and requires each student to participate in at least 5 events, or else their class will be penalized. Group events are worth more points, and the class reward system by grade level is as follows. The male and female MVP for each year will receive 2 million points, or the ability to transfer to a different class, but this must be used by the end of the semester. Directly after class, Horikita stands up, apologizing for choosing to protect Kushida, though she is confident that she made the best choice. Shinohara responds, stating that Kushida may continue to sabotage the class, and Horikita points out that expelling Kushida would significantly lower the class's overall ability average. Shinohara still isn't convinced though, as Harada takes the stage, asking everyone to keep Kushida's true personality a secret from the other classes. Horikita then declares that she will bring Kushida back, followed by her stepping outside with Koenji. Upon eavesdropping, Ayanokoji learns that Koenji is planning to be the MVP of the sports festival, however he's only going to participate in solo events. Around lunchtime, Ayanokoji is preparing to eat with Kei, whenever Horikita tells him that Nagamo wants to talk. He immediately reports to the student council office, where Nagamo asks to compete against him at the sports festival. Ayanokoji acts as if he doesn't stand a chance, so Nagamo states that if Ayanokoji competes against him 5 times and wins a single event, then Nagamo will finally leave him alone. Then upon attempting to leave the office, Ayanokoji is stopped and roped into a very awkward lunch with Nagamo and Ichinose. The next day, the 3 girls are absent once again, and Ayanokoji is called out into the hallway to speak with Chabashira-sensei. She brings up Sakura and explains that Sakura ordered something but was expelled before paying for it, and after seeing what it is, Ayanokoji gladly pays for this issue. After class, Harada asks to meet up with Ayanokoji later, and he would actually like Karuizawa to be there as well. Our couple then enjoys some alone time together, as Ayanokoji brings up the secrets that Kushida revealed, asking if Kei doesn't actually like Shinohara. She states that she does like her, and that she just got carried away when she called her ugly in the group chat. Kei has actively tried to repair this friendship, but at the moment Shinohara refuses to speak with her. Kei then wonders if Ayanokoji would have expelled her if she was at the bottom of the class. In a roundabout way, he says yes, and she informs him that the correct answer to that question was no. She then lays down in his lap, revealing that she thinks it was a mistake to save Kushida. Ayanokoji, however, explains that Horikita and Kushida complement one another perfectly, and that only time will tell if it was the correct choice. They then move on to a bit of kissing before Harada arrives, immediately bringing up the conflict within the class. Ayanokoji asked if he spoke to Horikita about this, to which he says no, you give better advice. Ayanokoji orders him to go to Horikita first, and if she can't lend a hand, then he will be willing to help. Ayanokoji then reveals that a quick fix for Michan would be for Harada to begin dating her, but as expected, he declines. Harada then brings up Sakura, stating that he's still being tormented by his memories of expelling her. Do you resent what I did? Harada actually responds with yes, but he's trying his hardest to trust in Ayanokoji anyway. The following day, the 3 girls are absent once again, and Sudo asks Ayanokoji to accompany him. Out in the hallway, Onodera approaches them, asking if Sudo is planning to become the MVP. Of course he is, and she points out that team competitions are worth much more than solo events. Due to this, and being a top female athlete herself, she wants to partner up with Sudo for as many duo events as possible. He's reluctant at first as he wants to work with Horikita, so he asks Onodera why she doesn't team up with Koenji. She apparently can't stand him or trust him for that matter, and after a bit of thinking, Sudo agrees to partner up with her as a way to carry their class to victory in this sports festival. Ayano Koji thinks this was a good idea, and then asks what Sudo wanted to talk about. You see, he's rather concerned with the state of the class, more specifically with Shinohara and Ike. And Ayano Koji states they are out of his range of expertise, carefully guiding Sudo to seek Harada for help. Just after class ends for the week, Horikita goes out of her way, asking if the class will be punished for the 3 girls being absent this entire week. Chabashira states there is no issue as of right now, however she warns that any continued absence will become a problem. Horikita then brings up the last special exam, doubting that she made the right choice to expel Sakura. Chabashira declares it's much too early to tell, but it's up to Horikita to prove that she made the correct choice. You then learn that Horikita feels guilty about protecting Kushida, after telling everyone that they would expel the traitor. Chabashira points out that betraying everyone was never her intention, and that everyone makes a mistake from time to time. Horikita comments on how Chabashira-sensei is acting more like a teacher, and then proceeds to ask for advice on dealing with Kushida. Chabashira explains that if you can't find help in your own class, then maybe you should look at the others. Now back in the dorm lobby, Horikita runs into Ibuki, and after a lot of bickering, Horikita has a realization and drags Ibuki up to Kushida's room. She explains that Kushida hasn't been coming to school, and that she's willing to battle against Ibuki in 3 events at the sports festival, if she's able to get Kushida to open the door. Ibuki instantly agrees, and Horikita reveals the truth about Kushida, prompting Ibuki to state that everyone has a dark side. She then waltzes right up to the door and begins shouting about needing to use the restroom, but she doesn't get a response. Next, she tries taunting and insulting Kushida, but it's the repeated kicking of the door that finally gets a pissed off Kushida to open up. They force their way inside, where Kushida asks why Horikita would risk revealing her secret to Ibuki, causing her to reply with,
"She doesn't have any friends to tell."
Horikita then declares that it's time for Kushida to get up and start helping the class. However, Kushida's aware that her absence will begin to reflect poorly on Horikita. All Horikita wants is for Kushida to selfishly use her strengths to climb toward Class A. Horikita recognizes that Kushida has every right to act like a pouting child, and after a bit more debating, and a small amount of physical violence, Kushida agrees to battle alongside the class once again. Upon waking up, Michan notices numerous text messages, but chooses to leave them unread. She's been skipping school due to the overwhelming embarrassment from Kushida revealing that she's in love with Harada. She then remembers that Ayano Koji sent her an email, offering to help her out any way he can. She gives him a call asking if they can meet up, all the while noticing the shower running in the background. Upon stepping out of the stairwell, Michan spots Kei leaving Ayano Koji's room, with her hair undone and looking not so put together. Michan apologizes for interrupting their date, but Kei doesn't seem to mind at all. After sitting down inside his room, she asks how he's able to go to school as if he didn't just expel his best friend. Ayano Koji explains that by missing school, you cause others to worry about you, which only ends up making the situation worse. She then asks about Harada and learns that by missing school, she's made Harada feel as though he's the reason for her absence. She thanks Ayano Koji for listening to her worries and vows to attend school Monday. Though shortly after she leaves, there's another knock on the door, which turns out to be Amasawa, politely asking to come inside. He basically says no, causing her to ask what type of naughty things he's been doing alone with Michan and Karuizawa. He reluctantly lets her inside, where she immediately begins scouring every inch of the room. She even inspects the floor, purposely putting her underwear on display for Ayano Koji. After confirming that nobody is listening in, she moves uncomfortably close to Ayano Koji's face, asking if he wants to know the identity of the other White Room student. He passes because that would put Amasawa in danger, so she leaves, commenting that the trash can is awfully empty for this time of the week. Then it's a few moments later that Ayano Koji receives a text message from Miyaki, informing him that Hasebe will be attending school tomorrow, though he warns Ayano Koji not to speak to her. It's Monday morning when Michan arrives to class, with Hasebe only a moment behind her. It's not until after class begins that Kushida finally arrives, taking her seat as everyone glares at her. Just as the lesson ends, Kushida stands up, quickly apologizing for hurting her classmates. However, she also states that she doesn't plan on getting along with them anymore. Shinohara calls out her shitty half-assed apology, and Kushida exclaims that if anyone tries to attack her, she'll retaliate by revealing even more of their precious secrets. After school ends, Hasebe approaches Ayanokoji, asking for him and Horikita to meet with her at the cafe. Horikita and Ayanokoji then discuss the sports festival, and she reveals that she's come up with one rather risky idea. A short while later, they arrive at the cafe, where Hasebe asks if Horikita's satisfied now. She says no, we're still 500 class points behind Class A. Hasebe then moves on to Ayanokoji, wanting to know his opinion about saving Kushida, causing him to state that he made his own choice. Horikita is confident that this was the best outcome for the class, and Hasebe proclaims that she'll never be able to trust Horikita again. Horikita bluntly asked what Hasebe wants, but all she can say is give me Sakura back. Hasebe regrets her decision to go along with the class, and Horikita explains that Sakura's expulsion will serve to motivate the lower performing students. Hasebe then stands up to leave, declaring that she will make them regret expelling her best friend. Later on, you find Horikita and Ayanokoji in a karaoke room, having a meeting with Ryun and Katsuragi. Ryun is curious what it felt like to sacrifice Sakura, and Horikita's just surprised he didn't do the same. Katsuragi wants to know why they're here, so Horikita proposes working together during the sports festival. Katsuragi actually thought up the same strategy, as a means for them to completely crush Class A. Ryun, however, demands compensation for this partnership, which Horikita blatantly refuses. Ryun threatens to leave, so Horikita reminds him how to get to the exit. He attempts to call her bluff, however she boldly states that her class has the upper hand in this sports festival. Ryun mentions that he's not against fighting dirty, causing Horikita to begin packing up her belongings. Katsuragi encourages Ryun to be more cooperative, but he exclaims that Horikita is only acting bold because Ayanokoji is here. He then orders her to have Ayanokoji leave the room, however she refuses. Next, Ryun tries to negotiate for private points upon Class B's victory, but Horikita isn't going to budge. It's only after verifying that this was in fact Horikita's idea that he finally accepts a 50-50 partnership for the sports festival. Now, students are not allowed to attend the sports festival unless they are participating, so the group wonders if Sakayanagi will embarrass herself in order to command her class. Ayanokoji, however, states that he'll be sure to prevent Sakayanagi's participation. Horikita just shouldn't count on him to earn any points. Sometime later, you see the main players of Class A discussing the sports festival. Sakayanagi is aware that Ryun and Horikita are teaming up, but even so, she's still confident in her ability to lead her class to victory. She is in fact planning to participate, and has a few ideas in mind of how she can disrupt Class B and D's fragile partnership. Next, we jump to Kei and Ayanokoji, who are having a relaxing date at the mall. The third years are still watching his every move. They unexpectedly stumble upon Sato, who lightly teases them before running away. After this, they bump into Ishizaki and Albert, causing Kei to begin acting defensive. They relocate, and Ishizaki apologizes for the rooftop incident, though Kei says don't worry about it, Ayanokoji already paid you back. You then come to find out that Ryun and Ayanokoji share the same birthday, so Ishizaki now wants to host a double birthday party. Kei will only allow this if Ryun apologizes, and to everyone's shock, Ishizaki agrees to try and get Ryun's apology. Jumping to Sato, just after she ran away, you find her being approached by a first year. This person mentions that Sato would have another chance at Ayanokoji if Karuizawa were to be expelled. Sato is then invited to this first year's dorm if she's interested in pursuing this option. It's the night just before the sports festival when Ayanokoji gives Horikita a call. She immediately asks why Sakayanagi is still registered to participate, followed by him revealing that he won't be attending the sports festival. He explains this is all part of his plan to lure away Sakayanagi, and Horikita doesn't even attempt to understand what he's thinking. The sports festival has begun, which means it's time for Horikita to face off against Ibuki. Their first competition is the 100-meter dash, where Horikita narrowly claims victory. A short while later, they face off in the long jump, where Ibuki wins with a mere 2-centimeter difference. Currently, the class rankings are as follows, just as Yagami approaches Horikita, congratulating her for leading the second years. He then tells her that Nagamo has won 5 events in a row. However, for some reason, he's not happy in the slightest. Horikita approaches Mr. President and can't help but overhear him talking to Kiryun. Apparently Nagamo is so extremely bummed out because Ayanokoji isn't participating in the sports festival. Kiryun suggests that he should just forget about his juniors and graduate quietly, but of course he doesn't care for this opinion. Nagamo then asks Horikita how Ayanokoji became sick so suddenly, prompting her to feign ignorance, claiming to not know anything. After lunch, you come to find out that second-year Class A is currently sitting in last place. Of course, it doesn't help that Ryun is doing everything he can to get under their skin and interrupt their plans. Now, with the sports festival nearing its conclusion, Ibuki approaches Horikita, demanding to compete one more time. You see, Horikita won their best-of-3 battle due to Ibuki arriving late to their final competition and thus not being able to participate. Horikita, however, is eligible to compete in one more event, so Ibuki chooses to follow her around in order to enter as well. Just as Horikita is trying to decide between the shuttle run or volleyball, Amasawa approaches, congratulating them both on their hard work today. Kushida then arrives to speak with Amasawa, but she steps away to prepare for the volleyball competition. Due to these three, all disliking Amasawa, they agree to work together to form a volleyball team. Kushida even uses her connections to recruit 2 girls from Class A and 1 girl from Class C. After winning the first few matches, our group makes it to the finals to face off against Amasawa's team. It's an extremely close match as Amasawa and Nanase are both extraordinary athletes, though Horikita, Ibuki, and Kushida are able to put aside their differences just long enough to claim an 8-6 victory. Around this same time, Sudo and Onodera are preparing for their final event, mixed gender tennis. They easily make it to the finals, finding themselves squaring off against Hosen, who wins the first game. During the second game, Hosen goes out of his way to pelt Onodera with the ball, injuring her leg and pissing off Sudo in the process. Sudo manages to win this round, and Onodera does her best to calm Sudo down. He's well aware that he has anger issues, but he listens as Onodera explains her technique that she uses to stay calm. During the third game, Hosen continues targeting Onodera, and Sudo claims victory by using her technique to stay calm. They share a big victory hug, and she asks if Sudo would like to go out to dinner sometime. He agrees without realizing her intentions, while immediately turning away to look for Horikita. A moment later, Hosen attempts to pick a fight with Sudo, but he simply takes the hit before walking away. Earlier this same day, you see Sakayanagi enter into Ayanokoji's dorm. She heard from her father that Ayanokoji would be absent from the sports festival, and she's well aware this is a trap to lure her away. Ayanokoji mentions that her class will likely lose the sports festival, but she doesn't care as long as she gets to spend time with Ayanokoji. They sit down on the bed where she feeds him some dessert, just before eating with the same fork herself. Sakayanagi wonders why he's fighting towards Class A, which turns out to all be part of his plan to prove the White Room wrong. She states it would have been better for him to participate in the sports festival, just before he pushes her backwards onto the bed. Ayanokoji activates his phone camera, exclaiming that nobody is around to hear you scream. Sakayanagi asks if he's about to commit a crime, but he says no. We're going to share a secret. He then tosses the phone aside, moving ever closer to the now smiling Sakayanagi. A bit later, Ayanokoji deletes the phone recording, as Sakayanagi asks if he is experimenting with Karuizawa or just trying to save her, and they're interrupted by a knock on the door. It turns out to be a voice Ayanokoji has only heard over the phone. This boy warns Ayanokoji to be extremely wary of the other White Room students, prompting Sakayanagi to speak up as well. After this boy leaves, Ayanokoji asks if she was able to recognize who it was. She says kind of, as she remembers it from a long time ago, but she's unable to remember the face that goes with it. And with that, the sports festival comes to a close, with Class B securing first place. Sudo and Onodera both won the MVP awards, and immediately claimed the 2 million personal points as their trophy. You also learn that, of course, Koenji flawlessly won all 10 of his events. It's then sometime later that you see Horikita and Ayanokoji once again discussing the unanimous vote special exam. Horikita is now certain that she made the correct choice in saving Kushida. He, however, thinks about how he can't wait to eventually leave this class. That way, he can battle against and defeat Horikita for himself. Though he earnestly hopes to lose this future battle, since that would prove the White Room and his father wrong.